Okay, we're doing this video today to diagnose an engine code that I have on this 2004 GMC 2500. It's a Sierra pickup with a 6-liter engine. So let's get after this. We're going to do this right now. This thing had a check engine light probably a week ago while I was doing some videos. And I actually have a video of looking at this same code for the first time. And I did a visual inspection. I checked out the system. The truck was running good. So I just reset it. I did complain in the video of one thing, and that's after I stop and fuel up with fuel, and I go to start my truck, it starts funny and almost doesn't start the first time. Okay, so that was my customer complaint, and it was this P0496. So we're going to diagnose this P0496 using procedures that I've taught my students, okay, from previous videos and such. So first we need to know what the P0496 is. So we'll do that. I have a Protoman window open right now. We're going to go with the vehicle. It's a GMC. It's a Sierra 6-liter engine, 2500. It's not the HD. It's not the diesel and the heavier diffs and all that stuff. This is it. Okay. We're already in the service manual, and we're going to go to the DTC index that stands for Diagnostic Trouble Codes. We are going to get the engine performance 6-liter gasoline DTCs. And if you guys remember, it's the 496. Here's the 496. So it says a continuous open purge flow condition is detected in the EVAP system. When I say EVAP, it's EVAP, just like that. Okay? Before I could really explain to you much of this code, you would definitely have to know how an EVAP system kind of works. So in this upper right-hand corner is a picture of the EVAP system. This is the fuel tank on the vehicle, by the way. Okay, this is where you fill the fuel in, right? And then there's a line coming out of the fuel tank, and your first idea of that is that's probably the fuel line that goes up to the injectors. Well, no, it's not. Fuel lines have a separate system off to the side, and it's called the EVAP system. And what the EVAP system does is make sure that no fuel vapors get out into the atmosphere. So we have one system of the fuel tank where we put fuel in and it pressurizes the fuel up to the fuel rail and we burn the fuel. We also return fuel to the tank. So we have two lines for the fuel system, and then we have one coming out for the EVAP system. And what the EVAP system does is a couple things. You know when you fill up your tank and sometimes you get that click and it gets up really high, right? Well, instead of having that fuel that's maybe too full go into the tank, some of it might get into this thing over here that's called the charcoal canister, okay, the EVAP canister. And what the canister does is it stores fuel vapors. So if your tank's really full and those vapors have nowhere to go, they go into the charcoal canister, which actually has charcoal in it that absorbs the fuel. And then that fuel stays in the charcoal canister until our engine is under the right condition to burn it. Okay? So what we have is this EVAP purge solenoid up at the engine. And what that solenoid does is just a valve that opens and closes. And when it opens, it allows the vacuum of your intake manifold to suck vapors out of your charcoal canister and into the engine and burn them. So the time that you usually do that is at cruising speed. You know, I'm going down the highway at 100 kilometers per hour and I'm going. This is a perfect time for that solenoid right here to open and allow me to pull out those vapors that are in there and burn them. Okay, it's just fuel. My oxygen sensor notices that, well, the computer already knows that they've opened it, so they're expecting fuel. And when that extra fuel gets pulled into my engine, into the intake manifold, it's just like another carburetor, really. It's like I got a carburetor and fuel injection going at the same time. And you know what? They'll just limit a little bit the pulse width of those fuel injectors and slow them down, so the truck doesn't overfuel. It's got oxygen sensor. It's all under control. Anyways, that's the EVAP system. It also has this vent valve that if pressures were to get too high in the charcoal canister, then it could actually vent some of that pressure off. And there's actually a little filter in there and everything. So that's the only time you'd ever get any vapors going into the atmosphere. That's the idea behind the EVAP system. So when we get back to this, it says the DTC test for undesirable intake manifold vacuum flow to the EVAP system. So the EVAP system should have flow in it when I'm cruising down the highway and I want to pull those vapors out of the charcoal canister and into the engine to burn them, not just sitting here running or whatever. Okay? So it talks about different times that they're open and closed. And for the sake of this video just being a little bit shorter, I'm going to keep it to the information that you need to know. Okay? Yeah, let's get after this. The fuel tank pressure decreases to less than negative 11 inches. Okay? So pretty much the engine vacuum in the vehicle is capable of pulling about 28 inches of vacuum. And during the diagnostic test that your vehicle runs every single time that you start up your vehicle and start driving, when it meets these conditions up above, okay, and the fuel tank pressure is less than minus 11 inches, it's going to turn the light on. So minus 11 inches is indicated when the valve is open. And if the valve's not supposed to be open, we got a problem if it's open when it's not supposed to be. And that's kind of what's happening here. So we're going to do the diagnostic procedure starting right now. Okay, this will timestamp that in the video right about this time. And we'll see how long this takes us to do. Okay. Did you perform the diagnostic system check? If you were in one of my other diagnostic videos, I explained that the diagnostic system check is making sure that that my battery is completely charged up, that my scanner is communicating to all the computers on board, and that I don't have any other things disconnected, no aftermarket things shoved in here that are making it different than the way it was at factory. I've looked over this truck, not to mention this is the one that I drive daily. It starts up for me every day, very reliable, other than this P0496 and my little bit of startup issue. So have I performed it? Yes, I have. I'm going to go to step 2. Okay, alrighty. Step 2 says to start the engine, and it says to seal the EVAP system using the purge seal function with a scan tool. I'm going to increase the engine idle to 1500 RPM, and I'm going to observe fuel tank pressure sensor with a scan tool. So I've got a scan tool hooked up to this thing. I've got the snap-on Varus all ready to go. What I need to do is I need to seal the EVAP purge valve, rev it up, and then note what my fuel tank pressure is. I think we can do that. That's not that hard. So we're going to go back over here. We're going to get out of the codes menu, and we're going to get into a functional test. I'm going to go to output controls and the EVAP purge solenoid. Oh, EVAP purge seal, even better. Okay, so I'm going to fire up the truck like it asked me to. I'm going to continue. And here's the functional test for the EVAP purge seal. If I want to seal it, I'll just click on seal and it will seal the valve. Okay. And what I was supposed to be watching is the fuel tank pressure. So I'll hit seal and I'll rev it up. Try not to hit my cable. 1500 RPM. I'm at 1500 right now. My pressure is -8 and climbing, -9 and climbing. We're off idle, 1500 RPMs, pretty steady-ish. As you guys can see, the RPM is up on your right there, so you can call my BS if you wish. Okay. The vacuum exceeded what it's allowed. It exceeded what it was allowed. You saw it. It was up around 17 inches of vacuum when we died there, okay? We'll go back to Protoman. And we started the engine. We sealed the evap system using the function of the scan tool, increase it, observe the fuel tank's pressure sensor. The value is supposed to be -1 to +1. We were -17. So is the fuel tank pressure sensor parameter within its specified value? No. We're going to go to step 3. This is where we need to turn off the ignition. And we need to disconnect the evap purge pipe. So I use multiple Protoman windows when I'm doing things all the time. I think it's just handy, because engine codes could take me a while to diagnose. So it's nice if I can bounce between windows and do my thing. Pick the vehicle again. And what I'm going to do is, I'm supposed to disconnect the evap purge pipe. That's that one line that comes from the fuel tank from the evap purge solenoid. Well, I don't know where the evap purge solenoid is, let's say. So I'm going to go into electrical component locations and electrical component locator. Oh, don't be shy. It was a solenoid. The evap canister purge solenoid for a 6-liter engine says it's behind the throttle body near the front of the engine. Well, that's good. This thing looks like it's pretty easy to get to. I want to view full screen here. Oh. So number 10 right up here, right in behind the throttle body, is the evap purge solenoid. And I'm supposed to take the line off. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do here is, I don't want to not show you these steps. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to share my video. So I hope this is working. I'm going to go into the Teams meeting and just see. Looks like we're having a little bit of freeze up here. Okay, cool. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to go share my screen here. I'm going to start presenting. And here's the evap purge solenoid right here. Okay, I'm going to disconnect it. The line has this little plastic clip, and I'm just going to pull it off. Okay. When it was running, what was happening was this valve was obviously open in a time it was supposed to be sealing. So it sucked a whole bunch of vacuum into the system when it wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be sealing. So I believe what the diagnostic procedure is trying to do now is test to see if its pressure sensor was reading properly. Okay, so we're going to go back over here. and get back into our video. There we are. I'm going to share the screen again, and I'll stop presenting and start sharing over there. Okay, so I think that worked okay. So you guys could see that part, which I think is important. Okay, all right. We took the pipe off, turn on the ignition with the engine off. So I'm going to do that. Okay, I turned off the ignition. I disconnected the pipe, turned on the ignition. My engine's off. Observe the fuel tank pressure sensor with a scan tool. So I've got a scan tool hooked up. We're going to display data, and we're going to go into evap data. I actually could go back into the functional test as it had all of those parameters there, and fuel tank pressure is 0.13. It's pretty steady, doesn't move. I disconnected it, I turned the engine off, key on, and it had 0.13, positive 0.13. Is the fuel tank pressure sensor parameter within specified range? The answer would be yes, okay, because it's at 0.13, so it's between -1 and +1. So we're going to go to step 4, as in yes, go to step 4. 4 says to replace the evap purge solenoid valve. So we found the problem, says Protoman. We've done the necessary tests, okay? We don't have to go on here. We're done. We don't have to do 5, 6, and 7, all right? Other things that you might have to do would be fuel tank pressure sensor replacement and things like that, but we don't. We just have to do the evap valve, okay? So you have to remove the engine shield, remove the line from the solenoid, and it shows you how to do that. That's what I've already done. Disconnect the electrical connector, remove the bolt, remove that, install the insulator, install the valve. Oh, this seems pretty simple. So let's do this, okay? I think it's important that we see this through to the end. So I'm going to share my video again on my phone. And we're going to change this valve. I took off the shield earlier, knowing that I had to do that. Here's the valve right here. We're going to just disconnect the line. And of course, I have in my hand the same 8mm socket, a 1/4-inch drive that I used to take the shield off. Sorry that I got to do all this with one hand or whatever, but it is what it is. I'm sure you guys don't mind, as hopefully we've got this thing figured out. So just remember that this is just a valve on and off that's controlled by your computer. And that valve is a valve between, I think this is the insulator that we're supposed to keep for the other valve right there, is that this is a little valve that shuts off vacuum from pulling in the evap line that goes to the evap canister. So if the computer wanted it off and to seal and it was flowing, well, that's the problem. That's why we're changing this thing. It's a little electrical solenoid that's probably supposed to move a valve in and out, and it's just defective. Okay, it's 2004. That was a lot of years ago. This truck has 300,000 kilometers on it. No big surprise there. Okay. So Murray Chevrolet's hooked me up with this. It was 80 bucks from GM. I just went with the GM part. I thought I could spare the $80 for this truck that has done a lot of good work for me. And yeah, we're going to do this. So I'm going to just, should really hire a cameraman. No, I just get one already. I'm going to put that insulator back on there over top of the O-ring. And it says to just put it in. It does have an O-ring seal. So I'm just going to make sure that that sets in there nicely. But I don't want to tighten it up, and let's say the O-ring's binding and breaks this new $80 sensor. I'm sure I could have got a cheaper one through Piston Ring, our local parts store here in Manitoba. As I get closer, I just want to make sure that that's seated there properly. Install, bolt it in, connect. I would bother with a torque spec if it sat there and gave me one, but as it doesn't. Snug with the 1/4-inch drive is good. We're going to put that line back on and connect the connector. So going back to my customer complaint, which was after fueling, I went to start and my truck wouldn't start, or it's ran badly. I think if I looked in my rearview mirror, I even saw some black smoke when it started. Well, when I fueled and maybe the fuel goes up quickly and then cuts off, maybe some of that vented fuel gets into the charcoal canister. Now my charcoal canister is sitting there with a lot of fuel vapors in it because I just fueled my tank, right? So even if I didn't let it fill right up, it's full and it's fuel vapors at a high capacity. So the charcoal canister got full of fuel, and this valve, if it wasn't closing and I was under a straight pull right when I was starting, well, my truck doesn't like all that extra fuel during a start. Because the truck's just starting, it's at low RPM, it's kind of like in a mode where it's going to struggle a little bit. And that's no good for anything. So that extra fuel coming in gave it a very rich condition when I was starting, leading to my truck not starting after I fill up with fuel. Kind of funny, you know? At first you think it's just a jinx, and then I tried like starting at home. Well, it starts just fine at home. Well, I just drive to work. I shut it off and let's say wait 2 minutes because that's the length of time it took me to fill with fuel. Start up, starts just fine. So it was during refueling up. I see comments all over the internet. I just searched the problem this morning, and you know there's a lot of information. People are like, oh, check your plugs and check your coils or whatever, but here it is. Evap purge solenoid. I'm positive that that's the fix for it, and it made me feel even more positive when I looked at the procedure here on Protoman. So just going to go back to sharing my screen here so you guys can see the scanner again. Okay. There's our fix. We're all good. I'm going to go in here and go to that code. That code right there, that's the one that I've had for a while. I'm going to clear the codes. Yes. I'll continue. I'm going to start up. I'm just going to make sure that I don't have that 1/4-inch drive ratchet in the fan or something. That would be a bad day at the office. I'll just confirm that my check engine light is out, which it is. And what I'm thinking about doing is this functional test that we did before, you know, because we failed. It failed this functional test, which was very easy to do. Fuel tank pressure. Let's put it in a seal. And we'll rev it up. So it wants you to just kind of hold. The reason it's off idle is you get a good vacuum at 1500 RPMs. And you can see that seal as it was like at 0.13 before, and it dropped down to 0.03. It's at no flow. Before, that thing was starting to skyrocket down towards engine vacuum, which, like I said, is like negative 20. You could pull maybe 26, 27 out of a really good motor, but like 23 is probably a good number. Well, I got down to 17, then the test shut off, and like, no. You're not allowed to do that. That's a bad number. Now we have a good number. So I'm confident that this is fixed. We did a good fix here today. Okay. Well, I hope through this video you've had a chance to see how, maybe understand how the evap system works on a vehicle, and then see, again, live time, how easy it can be to fix that check engine light by following a diagnostic procedure. Okay. Thank you.